You're listening to the Fezcast, the Saracens fans podcast, bringing you the independent and unhinged views of the voices in our heads, as well as those of our special guests. To get in touch with us, find the Fezcast on social media and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube and more. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy this week's show.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, hello everybody and Happy New Year, because we're going out 1st of January, aren't we, Duncan? And we're kind of a bit of an unusual Fezcast, really, because we've managed to do this in about 14 different ways, haven't we? Including you taking me by the hand into the woods at Ampthill yesterday, which is, slightly frightening.
It's a horrible thought.
It is, you aged rock stars and what you got up to and everything, honestly, I tell you. But, it's it's one of those weekends, isn't it? Because, I'll add into it as well. I'm a West Ham fan and Liverpool gave us a thumping last night in the football as well. So, sporting-wise, this weekend hasn't been the greatest weekend. And
couldn't happen to a nicer bloke.
It really couldn't, could it? But there we go. No, first things first. Did you have a good Christmas, mate? That's the important question.
Yeah, really good. All at home with the family, grandsons, daughter, son-in-law, lot of sport, all good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's much the same as what mine was as well. The sport mainly being watching two dogs ripping wrapping paper up, but there you go. Someone who didn't have a good Christmas present, or a slightly late Christmas present, was Hugh Tizard, wasn't it? Something that's been ongoing for quite some time, but we finally got confirmation of his suspension, which is 12 weeks reduced to 6 weeks, which I think seems fair for the offence. And they take it into account, it's his first and all of that, the normal things. And as Matt pointed out, even Stuart Hogg would he's a good bloke on the DOR bit, wouldn't it? He doesn't deserve this. People are questioning why did it take so long, and apparently it took so long because Saracens questions the veracity, shall we say, of Falcon's analysis of the injury on Arnold and saying 3 months and said, are you sure? And that's what took the time, Duncan.
Yeah, both of us have had the benefit of reading the summary of the report today, and it seems a very fair judgment. The judgment was that Hugh Tizard was seriously reckless, which is why it was a serious 12-week penalty, but that it wasn't deliberate, and his actions directly after the game and in apologising and the way that he conducted himself during the hearing meant that was halved, which was, I think, in all of the circumstances, a good result.
Yeah, it's one of those daft things. I always have an issue with the way that the disciplinaries are done, and I've often, argued on here before for a different way of doing it. And I sat on some disciplinary boards in the past with blokes that I knew were completely out of thugs coming up in front of me, but they all turn around and say how sorry they were and they didn't mean it. And then 10 weeks later down the track, you see him again sort of thing. Hugh's not a dirty player. It's just one of those things that happens in the game. And indeed, we'll talk about it when we talk about red card in the Bath game for Toby Knight, won't we? Some players you look at me and think, yeah, they're walking red cards every game they play. Others, it happens in the game, and as long as you show contrition, which you would expect, then, yeah, fair enough, you get a reduction, don't you?
The Newcastle player was utterly convinced that it was deliberate, but I'm with you. I doubt it was deliberate. It was the 81st minute or something. Probably completely knackered. Frustrated, yes, and perhaps, he went in a bit harder than he might have done otherwise, but...
Yeah, to suggest a player goes out deliberately to injure another player, and yes, we have seen it, and, Callum Clark, ex of our parish, got a big ban for doing something deliberately, but it's very rare that happens. I don't think any player goes out with the intention of hurting someone deliberately, and even if they do it deliberately, it's very much heat of the moment, and something that is regretted immediately afterwards. Talking about things that are regrettable, we do have to speak about Bath away, and our first 3-word review from the weekend from Andrew Radovanovic. Andrew J. Rads on Twitter. Make it stop. I think after 15 minutes and Toby Knight's red, I think we knew what was coming, and we did really want it to stop, didn't we, Duncan?
Yeah, it was a game that I was at home watching on the telly, and if we weren't due to talk about it today, I think I would have left at half-time, because you could see what was going to happen. It was an early red card, early in the game. You knew from that point that the last 15 minutes were going to be ugly because Saracens would be knackered. There would be lots of space, and Bath are a blinking good team with a really good back line and a really good fly half.
Yes, money well spent, as Steve Diamond would say, wouldn't he? But I think the important thing here is that, again, as we often have seemed to do this season, is talking about managing expectations. The Woe Be Me gang have been out on social media, and I had a little bit of a to and fro with somebody on the Sarries fans forum last night where he was suggesting that the coaches needed to refund spectators their money and everything, which I thought, no, come on. And he did say that it was very much spur of the moment and a knee-jerk reaction. But I think we need to put it into perspective. Bath are the best team in the league this year, without a shadow of a doubt. And whether Steve Diamond's comments have got any truth in them or not, they are a team that you would love to have. I mean, Finn Russell is an exceptionally good player, and he is making players outside him look extremely good. To go to the Rec and expect to win, I don't think anybody can expect that. And we said it last week on the Fezcast. We're very much the opinion that we came away there with a losing bonus point or maybe a try-scoring bonus point. That wouldn't have been a bad result. Truth of the matter was, we had 3 serious injuries and we had a red card. And it just made the job really difficult. And as you say, these things happen. I think Mark McCall said it, hasn't he, in his post-match interview. He said it is a big moment because when these thunderbolts come along, which they have in previous seasons, is how you respond to it, which defines you. Every now and then, and we've always said it about this league, there are opportunities for teams to do this to other teams every week.
It's what is making the race really interesting. I mean, yes, I think you're right. Bath will come top. But looking at the other results over the weekend and some of the performances, you never know what's going to happen. And I think you're absolutely right. Even having just is the wrong word, but just those 3 injuries would have been enough to mean that we were never going to come in away from anything from that game. Those plus an early red card.
And also the other thing, of course, that comes out of those 3 injuries and the red card is the fact that coaches have been criticised for resting players, but there was an absolute need to rest players, particularly Nick Tompkins, particularly Tom Willis, who've played every minute going so far and have been exceptional. They just needed a rest. And the point of having a squad is that you have these opportunities. And if you're going to go to a game where it's going to be a damage limitation game, like many teams have come to the Saracens, to the Stonex, and gone into, I think Northampton Saints did the week before, didn't they? They had a very damage limitation look about their team. Yeah, okay, it doesn't work because you don't get a bonus point here or a bonus point there. But the important thing is, with important games coming up, Tom Willis is rested, Nick Tompkins is rested. They come back in because suddenly you're missing Theo McFarland. You're going to be missing Toby Knight. We're missing Hugh Tizard for another couple of weeks at least. You know, sometimes you got to take the rough to get the smooth, haven't you? Take some pain to make a gain.
Mark McCall before the game made the point that other teams in the Premiership rest players during Europe, and we don't do that because we're giving it a serious go. I mean, we probably almost certainly are not going to win that competition, but nevertheless, I think that's a good thing to give Europe a serious go. But it does mean, as you say, there's going to be a game where you're going to have to rest players. Now, quite un-Saracens-like and quite pragmatic to say that we're probably not going to win away against Bath, so let's rest players for that game, because the really important game is the one that's coming up next weekend.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a bit further on. I mean, it is quite a French attitude to take, isn't it? That you win your home matches, you go away, you attack the odd away game, and the moment you should have attacked Newcastle, we didn't. You're going to attack Exeter Chiefs away, potentially Northampton away at the moment, the way they're playing. Why waste energy on it? Oh, we do need to speak about the red card, because the one thing is, it was a Carl Dixon refereeing performance that we see, and he comes in for a bit of criticism, and I think sometimes quite justifiable criticism. I think I said to you yesterday, didn't I, Duncan, that Carl Dixon played the game like he was trying to referee in it, and often was wrong when he was doing that. And I see sometimes you got to play to what he sees, but that red card, I thought, was an away red card at the Rec. If that been Alfie Barbary, for instance, that would have been a yellow card. And Carl Dixon found every reason not to look at any mitigation whatsoever. He just dismissed it out of hand for me, whereas I felt there was enough mitigation for it to be a yellow. And certainly this season in other games, you've seen those challenges be yellows. I think they said it on commentary, didn't they? If the 20-minute red card rule was being used in our domestic game, that would have been a 20-minute red card.
They did say that. There's a lot of comment online about the ex-Harlequins player, Carl Dixon, etc. I don't think there was that. As he talked through it, he did actually talk about looking for mitigation and decided that there was no dropping. I mean, I know you disagree with that, but the way that he talked it through, if you take it as given, as did all of the referee team, that there was no, I think he said, significant dropping, then it was a shoulder to the head with serious force. Red card. It all comes down to whether you think there was any dropping.
Watching it in real time, then watching it slow motion, I thought slow motion made it look worse than what it was. In real time, I think he was unlucky. Okay, he's got the red card. You can't deal with that. That's Carl Dixon's the man with the whistle, isn't he? I haven't got the whistle, so it's his perception and his reading of it that matters. More
than the fact that it ruined the game, let's be honest about it, it ruined the game. I always love to see our younger players breaking into the team, and Toby Knight's at that stage, and it was a big opportunity for him, a start against the league leaders, and that was a huge shame for me that he didn't get a chance to go the whole game, really pick up that experience and show what he's worth.
Well, I mean, you know my thoughts. I do disagree with the idea that red cards ruin games, but I think what they do is significantly change the dynamic of the game, and that certainly happened. Going back to our 3-word reviews, James K11106 said ban aimless kicking. Was it aimless kicking? I think in previous weeks we've done very well from the kicking, and I saw enough of particularly Rotimi Shegan getting in and causing problems under the kicks, so I don't necessarily see that as a thing. Richard Adams made the point, unlucky but outclassed, and I think that is pretty much it. Bath were a class above on that day.
I would say that they were always going to outclass us with the extra space. Give them that extra space of a man missing. They're always going to outclass you.
Absolutely. Jodie Dalton's pointed out, attack still poor. Well, yeah, attack maybe still poor. But I mean, the important thing is, what I wanted to see was once we'd gone down to 14 men, that we still made Bath work half their tries. It wasn't like they were running tries in off a first phase ball. You wanted to pick out 2 players, and I agree with you. Ben Earl and Maro Itoje really did step up and play like a player and a half each to make up for the fact that Toby Knight was off the pitch.
I thought they were both immense, and in particular Maro. I mean, players can give up, but clearly they are just the type of people who don't. They just kept going like Trojans right to the end. You picked up Roti, and he was chasing every lost cause going all the time and doing a really good job at it. Harry Wilson, when he came on, is now looking like he's a sort of Alec Cleary type player, isn't he? That you're not worried if he's on the bench anymore, because he showed, particularly yesterday, he can come on and make a difference.
I think that's a very good point to make there. And KP coming on at hooker as well, another position where you were going to be potentially concerned about. You know, Theo Dan's injured, James is injured. KP, is he going to be off at the end of the season? If the noises that we hear behind the scenes are going to go by, quite possibly he will be. But he came on, didn't let himself down, threw in straight to the line-out, which has always been an issue, and scored a try. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's the important thing, is that Bath were made to work for 11 tries, and against 14 men, that's all you can hope for, really, isn't it?
Totally, I agree with all of that. Just going back to the original 3-word review, attack still poor, I did at one point think that I might actually know what I was talking about, because in previous games, particularly against Newcastle, I was complaining about our attack often, not all the time, but often standing static when they're receiving the ball, and that was something that Mr. Flatman commented on that we were doing. So I think there is some work to do on attack. It's often very good, especially in broken play, but we do seem to be standing very statically for a lot of the game when we're trying to break down defences.
That's certainly something I've spotted, and I'm sure the coaches will have spotted that as well, and we're doing some work on that this week, particularly given what's coming up. I'm just going to finish the last couple of 3-word reviews with a couple. First of all, Mark Todd, still top 4. And that is right. You know, we are still top 4.
Thanks to some other results.
And Steve Cummins, our old friend, Saracens 1971, move on quickly. And yeah, that's what you've got to do. And moving on quickly to a huge match. And as you said, given the results around our result, this isn't quite as damaging a result as perhaps we thought at 5:15 on, or whatever time the game at 3:15 it finished on Saturday. Bristol losing at home to Sale, who've suddenly jumped up into the top 3 almost from nowhere. Quinn's Tigers drawing. Might have been better if Quinn's had got a win there, but I mean, a draw's going to suit us. And then Chiefs finally getting a win, beating Gloucester. So actually, you know, it's one of those games that isn't as damaging, but it does mean that we've got to follow up and do the double over Bristol and win against them. 2 wounded sides coming back with lots of attacking talent all over the pitch, albeit that we've got a bit of an injury crisis now. That game against Bears is going to be big and could easily be a domestic season-defining match.
Another WhatsApp group I'm on after the Friday night Sale Bristol game said, oh boy, we are really going to get it next weekend now that Bristol had been nilled. It was actually at Bristol, wasn't it? Nilled at home. But I think after that result on Saturday, our boys will all be revved up as well. But as you say, especially in up front, we've got a few big men missing.
We have, but I mean, the one thing I will say is the couple of times that we've had defeats this season, in particular the Newcastle Falcons game, we will see a reaction, I believe, against Bristol. I think it's going to be a cracking game, but I really think that we will see a reaction. I think Ivan Van Zyl will start. Gareth Simpson did a really good job, I thought. He was really good, but Ivan Van Zyl, his kicking is that much more accurate. Nick Tompkins will come back undoubtedly, I hope. Alex Lozowski will be fully on pace after a couple of games coming back. Tom Willis back.
Well, you never know. Maybe Theo will be playing, Theo McFarland. There's no news on his injury as yet because he's been having a great season.
Yeah.
But then you've got JMG.
Yeah, there's plenty of options still out there. And I mean, that's the beauty of it. Well, that's all to look forward to. Next up, you and me met in the woods in Bedfordshire, in deepest, wildest Bedfordshire. My first ever trip to Ampthill. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Going to hand over to Duncan, whose guest is me. In the woods at Ampthill, and we'll discuss the Ampthill game in the next section.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
You are listening to the Fezcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracen Supporters Association, and I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the Stonex.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, I'm here at Ampthill with Jez. We've just been in the clubhouse where for £30 you can have a very acceptable curry and a match ticket. And we're now walking up through the woods up to the pitch. So, Jez, what do you reckon about Ampthill?
It's quite amazing, isn't it? It's like rugby where I played for most of my career, really. I mean, you can see the disparity between Premiership and the rest, really, can't you? Which is obviously a problem for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much less muddy than when I came last year, but still, I'm very glad I got my wellies on. And it's just charming, isn't it? And we can just see the pitch through the trees there as everybody's wandering through. And we're very much looking forward to seeing a game where Ampthill have got, I believe it's about 10 Sarries players in the squad. And I'm in particular looking forward to seeing Samson Adejimi. And anybody that you're particularly looking forward to seeing?
Well, to be honest with you, I haven't seen the team list. So, no, I'm just looking forward to seeing lads from Saracens, obviously, with this the relationship they got with Ampthill, that's really good to give them competitive rugby to get them ready, especially considering what we saw yesterday down at the Rec.
Yeah, let's hope that it's a lot happier than that. We'll catch up later after the game. So, half-time report here. A very entertaining half, Jez, but one that hasn't gone Amptill's way, with Cornish Pirates leading 4-1 due to some very, very good running, passing rugby.
Yeah, indeed. Very impressive from Cornish Pirates, and particularly from their diminutive scrum half, who Duncan's very happy because he's actually scored at the end. He scored a couple of tries, as he made a couple of others. He's been running the game pretty much the first 30 minutes.
It is extraordinary to see a scrum half. I'd go as far as to say it's probably 2/3 of my height, which is very small indeed.
Yeah, tiny.
But stand out for me for Ampthill have been the Bracken brothers.
Yeah, I mean, Jack on the wing, he's got afterburners, hasn't he? So, and place to burn. Just been a bit unlucky not to be given enough space to work in and support not perhaps getting to him quick enough.
That's right. He's one of those players, when he gets it, a little bit of a thrill runs through the crowd because, boy, he's quick. And he received one hospital pass and a very unlucky not to get through on another one. Charlie Bracken as well, we've seen some lovely passing from.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, it's a comment we made. Those of us who remember his father playing when Kieran used to get criticised for not being the conductor. Something that Charlie's obviously learned is how to pick and choose the times he goes into contact and everything. But his pass is exceptional. At this level, it looks really, really impressive.
Indeed. And Samson Adejimi, quite understandably and forgivably, his first game back, he's puffing a little bit, but still we've seen some very solid play from him and a good try.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, he looks like a player that's got a bit of power about him and can knock holes. Cornish Pirates have been pretty good in their defence, it has to be said, and they've been knocking back Ampthill players regularly. But Samson got on the front foot a couple of occasions and got a good try from it.
He did. Now, the interesting point that we're going to see in the second half is, can Cornish Pirates be as effective and dangerous running and passing when they're running uphill?
Yeah, indeed. It's a ground in which you don't need longer strides. I think you need crampons, don't you, going upwards. It's been hard work until first half. I think, obviously, they won the toss and a bit of local knowledge decided to play uphill in the first half. Hopefully, let's see Jack Bracken put in some space coming down here. That could be quite fearsome.
Jack Bracken downhill is going to be a sight to behold. We'll be back at the end of the game to talk about that. So, full time, Cornish Pirates 33, Ampthill 17. I think we got a bit excited there at the beginning of the second half, Jez, when Jack Bracken did indeed score a flying try going downhill.
Yeah, it looks like for a moment in time that they might come back into it. Certainly, they looked a lot more with it in attack, and I think perhaps the team had gelled together a bit more in the second half. But ultimately, I think Pirates had enough of a lead that they could hold on to it.
Yeah, the damage was definitely done in the first half. Great to see, took us back a few years seeing that blonde dyed flat top coming on at prop, didn't it?
Yeah, a young man by the name of Barrington, apparently. He's got a hell of a future in front of him, so I've been told.
And had an assist pass at the end there for Ampthill's final consolation try. Did very well indeed. Caden Pearce-Paul in the second half as well really imposed himself, especially in the line-out.
Yeah, I thought he had a very good game. And a player that you looked at thinking in the first half, was he quite there? But he certainly grew into the game and showed enough there. I'm not sure if a second row is his best position now. I think he might develop into a back row sometime later in his career.
He's a very big lad. He's very tall, and he showed his pace a bit with a kick chase there in the second half when a long kick that he nearly caught up with. It will be interesting to see. Of course, his brother is a superstar in rugby league on the wing, and he certainly looks like he might have that attributes to do a similar sort of job. Very entertaining game, though. Really delighted that we came. We're going to have a wander down back through the woods to the clubhouse again, and we'll see if we can have a chat with anybody before we wrap things up.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Very pleased to be here after the game here at Ampthill with Richard Barrington. Richard, a very tough match.
Sorry.
You got your pint in?
Yeah, just getting my round in.
First things first, the important things first. A very tough match, which I think Ampthill probably lost in the first half when you weren't playing, and a bit too much to catch up with in the second half, really.
No, definitely. I don't know if there was Christmas puddings in our stomachs and stuff, or the turkey made it a bit flat, but the first half wasn't good enough for our standards. We just a few individual mistakes that cost us. The team didn't really front up. I felt like we had a good stand, look ourselves at half time and put a better performance in the second half so we can build on that for next week.
I wanted to ask about that because in the first half, there was some very effective running rugby from Pirates. And I wondered how much the slope plays an effect in that, or whether it was just something that you said at half time because you were way more solid in the second half.
Everyone goes on about this slope. It's not the slope I can see in my eyes, to be fair. But maybe I'm wrong. But it's not quite as bad as Bedford's slope. Maybe there is a slope, but I think in my eyes, the wind was, we had to win the second half. I mean, the slope doesn't do much for a front rower. I don't know how much he does for a back.
Certainly, Jack Bracken running down that slope for his try was a sight to behold. He had a really good game, I thought.
Yes, and he finished great try in the start of the second half. We could really kick on from that.
Yeah, it looked like you were on the point of getting another score there, which would have made it a very different game, I think.
No, definitely. Just some errors and losing the ball in the wrong places and stuff. Just little things we just need to brush up on, really, and perform. Everyone dusted up a little bit, and then our performance will be a lot better as a team. So,
how's life treating you in general at Ampthill?
Yeah, it's all good. Transitioning from full-time into coaching as well as playing. Still got plenty in the tank to play in. I still love playing and stuff, so it's good. And also coaching, really enjoying it.
I did want to ask you that because we saw you in a bib at the Stonex. I think it was an under-19s game, wasn't it, earlier on in the season?
Yeah, so I'm doing some scrum work with the under-18s Saracens, our Academy League starting January. So it's exciting times. Some good youngsters and really looking forward to our league starting, and also doing a bit of scrum work with the Saracens women's team. So also season's going quite well. We just need to win a few more games, get out top four and see where we
It's an exciting end to the season for the women, isn't it? A very tight top four there. How did your time in France go with Ajon?
Yeah, it was good. Really enjoyed it. First year played a lot. Second year, unfortunately, went to watch my mate play England versus Samoa. I drank a lot, but it was fine. Really had a good time. Came back to watch Japan versus Fiji, was it? I can't remember, in Toulouse. And then went training Monday, felt a bit ropey. I thought, I'm just getting old and maybe it's a hangover from the Saturday night one. Went in Tuesday, went and had a look, and then found out my appendix blew up.
Oh, bloody hell.
So that put me out for 5 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
But finally got recovered, played a few games before the end of the season, but really enjoyed my time in France. Really good fun. Made some really cool, real nice people. Friends I'll stay in touch with for a long time, and yeah, really enjoyed it.
The Pro D2 is a really tough league, isn't it? Fully professional with some really big teams in it.
No, definitely the D2 is a very good league. Playing in the D2 and playing in the Champ, it's just similar physicality, scrum time and stuff like that, but the boys are bigger in D2. Big French boys, big Georgians and Fijians and Samoans. Yeah, it's really enjoyed my time over there. I thought the French do really good. The French Federation, how they run their rugby over there, how the Tier 2 teams play on Thursday and Friday, so then the main teams play Saturday and Sunday, then get more fans to games because people who love rugby go to both games in one weekend. And just seeing how France run their rugby federation, it's incredible.
It's much better, isn't it? Well, I'm really pleased to hear that you're well embedded on the coaching staff at Saracens, and looking forward to see that dyed blonde top, not just in the scrums, but at the Stonex again.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for talking.
No worries, thank you. Oh, sure.
I bet you are. So I'm here with James Isaacs after the match. We're standing in the freezing cold, which is very good of you, James, to have a word with me. A tough game.
Yeah.
That I think was won in the first half when Pirates really played some strong running rugby, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, yeah. I think it's always a hard game when the first 20 minutes goes like that. It just feels like you're sort of chasing the game after that, which I think we showed good fight in the second half. I think we actually won that half, but obviously the damage had been done earlier on in the game.
When Jack Bracken went over, we were all thinking, just one more score and you're nearly there.
Some goes and then, it's the other way. Yeah, he made some good impacts in the game. And I thought everyone's sort of heads might turn at that point, and it was, unlucky, hard to do, I guess.
Kevin and I, who's standing here like a fatherly figure looking after you here, was saying it was probably just one score too many in the first half to get back, even though it looked like you might do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think, that's what we were sort of saying at half time. We've just got to put that behind us and try and sort of claw back that gap, which I think looking back was quite a hard task when we started doing that.
I asked Richard Barrington this just now, but to what extent, because you look so much more solid, the defence was coping very well with a big team that was coming at you. You look so much better in the second half. To what extent is that a psychological effect of we're playing downhill now, or was it something that was said at half time?
Sort of a little bit of both. I think at half time we had some pretty strong messages from the coaches sort of telling us that we've got to change something, and that physicality was a big part of that. I think that's sort of why the game sort of went away from us in the first 20, because we were losing those collisions. I think there was a definite mentality switch going into the second half, which I think that was a lot of the reason why we ended up doing a lot better in the second half.
They just seemed to find the spaces in the first half, didn't they?
Yeah, I think, I mean, think more a little bit of the backs, not sure what their sort of tactics and stuff were, but yeah, I guess they just sort of seemed to find the space on the edges quite well in the first half. And then going into the second half, we started to front up more physical in the middle, and then they couldn't get those edges as well as they did in the first half.
Well, it's interesting to hear how you turned it round and almost made it.
Yeah.
So anyway, better luck next time, but very enjoyable game to watch.
And it was,
once again, thanks for having a chat.
No worries. Thank you.
Hi, this is Petrus Duplessis, and you are listening to the Fezcast.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, welcome back to the last part of this week's Fezcast, our New Year Fezcast. Great day out yesterday at Ampthill. Really enjoyed it. A proper rugby club. I mean, you can see why there is a disparity between the Championship and the Premiership in rugby. And it's quite interesting when you talk to Richard Barrington and you were talking about his time playing in D2. You could see why in France promotion and relegation does work to a certain extent because of the strength of their second tier. If you've got clubs like Ampthill with the greatest will in the world to them, they're never going to compete at the top table, are they? And it does mean for clubs who could potentially compete at the top table, they may be held back in perception because of other clubs like Ampthill. I don't know. Is that a fair criticism?
Well, you don't want to get me started on the way the game's organised in this country. He could be here all night. But he was right in talking about the way the game's organised in France. And he picked out one example of the fact that the Pro D2 games are on a Thursday and a Friday. That's because of the TV deal. Canal Plus have abandoned football to take up rugby, and part of it is they give an enormous amount of money to the Pro D2 teams to have them play on a Thursday night. Can you imagine Sky abandoning football for rugby? That's the essential difference between France and England. In France, they don't have to compete with the World League that is the Premier League that suck in all of the event-going spectators, etc. The other thing that's different in France is that there is a huge amount of local sponsorship, which includes local government subsidy. So that means that the Pro D2 is a fully professional league with some very big teams in it, playing in very big stadium, getting very big crowds. It's a virtuous circle of that big TV deal, big local sponsorship, brings in big crowds for big games, and that's the essential difference.
It's quite amazing, isn't it, when you think that football isn't as huge in France as perhaps you think it would be, given the fact that they've won 2 World Cups, the European Championship, been to finals and have got the world's best player in Kylian Mbappe playing, and yet rugby's so much more important. Probably why rugby perhaps hasn't taken off in Germany in the same way as perhaps it would do, like it has done perhaps in Italy.
And Spain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very good point. I mean, don't get me wrong, those who went to the World Cup and went to those football stadiums will have seen some magnificent stadiums. I did in Nice and Lyon. But it's not like the Premier League. The 2 Paris teams don't have about, 5 Premier League teams to compete with and a load of very big championship clubs as well. Just doesn't exist, and it's not all consuming in the media.
No. Absolutely not. Lovely to hear from Baz, though. I mean, it was great to see that shock of, as you said previously, the shock of peroxide hair still going, I mean, how old is he now? He's in his 33, 34, still looks like he thinks he's 23. And well, interesting to hear about his troubles out in France with his appendix as well. Thinking it might have been too many Cronenberg 1664s, and it wasn't.
He certainly likes that. I mean, I did wonder, he made a lot of appearances in his first season and then not many in the second. And now we know why. We had an inkling when he turned up at StoneX for the under-18 or under-19 game that he was planning to go into coaching. And it's great to hear that he is. Overall, talking to him, he seemed to be in very good spirits, very much enjoying life, enjoying playing at Ampthill and combining it with the coaching side of things. And I was a little bit cruel by leaving in the bit at the end. I think he thought that the recording had stopped when he was saying, "Oh, God, I feel stiff," which is obviously the affliction of well, coming from me, it sounds ridiculous, but an ageing rugby player.
Indeed. Well, the other interview you did was with a young lad, 20-year-old hooker, on Saracens books, but playing at Ampthill, playing second string to another Saracens hooker in Samson Adeyemi, who had a spot-on game, I thought, once he got into the game. I mean, I think the first 20 minutes for all of the Ampthill lads was a bit of a struggle. But once they got into the game, they did look the business. But James young lads, spoke very well, and it's good to see these young players coming through. As you said off air, he's got a bit of a queue behind where he's sat at the moment to get into the Saracens reckoning. But, we spoke about KP earlier on. Is he going to be leaving? So there could be opportunities. And if you play well and you perform well at Ampthill, then obviously you put yourself in the shop window.
It's a shame that Samson Batajimi was injured during the Premier Cup run, wasn't it? Because he is a very exciting player, very powerful. The fact that KP is probably off is proof that he's at that Toby Knight, Ollie Hartley, Angus Hall. They're all breaking into the team now, and he'll be the next one, I think.
Yeah, indeed. Well, it's lovely to speak to them. We'll keep our eyes on them as we go for the season. I'm sure yourself and me, we might well end up at Ampthill again, if nothing more, for the vegan curry, because I thought it was fabulous.
Yeah, and I'd like to say I'd really urge, in addition to going to the women's games, if you're a Saracen supporter, go to Ampthill as well, because I'm sure you'll agree, with all of its walking through the woods, with all of its charm, we're standing on a hill watching the game. It's a great day. It's a really great day.
It is. Well, last thing we need to speak about, though, is a departing player. Tom Parton was announced in between us recording yesterday and today that he's off to Japan, to George Cruz's old side. Going to touch of the Vapors, for those of us who like our old punk and new wave. He's off to Japan. Never really made it, did he, as a player for us? He showed some glimpses, got an injury, came back, had the fastest Premiership hat-trick, but never really develops. And, Sanjay coming back, Liam Williams coming back, is that a sign that perhaps he's signed a longer contract? And then you look at the likes of Brandon Jackson, Tobias Elliott, Angus Hall, your favourite from Sunday, Jack Bracken, Usain Bolt's feet on him. He's really knocked down a pecking order. So obviously Japan's come in with a few yen for him, and daft not to take the opportunity, isn't he?
I think it is probably a sign that Sanjay Williams is going to sign an extension. And as you say, all of those great young players coming through. He had a really good run last season on the wing, didn't he?
Yeah. When
he really showed some pace, and he's a very, very good player. But I think it's just a situation that someone's got to go. It's interesting that we don't appear to have a single fly half in the academy, but centres and wings and fullbacks, we're bringing them through like there's no tomorrow.
If we're right up against the salary cap, the opportunity to offload a significant salary, I doubt Tom's on the big money, to offload that to give you some scope to be able to sign a player of Liam Williams' undoubted class. With the youngsters coming through, you're going to take that opportunity as well from the club. It seems like good business all round, really, doesn't it?
That's definitely true. Plus, you've got to give a pathway to these young players or you'll lose them, won't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to have a situation that when there is an injury to an Elliot Daly or Williams or what have you, and you've got youngsters who are good enough, as Mario Toji said about Angus Hall, and he said it previously about Tobias Elliott, you've got to give them a chance to play.
Yeah, and I think those players are really taking their opportunity, perhaps more so than Tom has, whether that's his abilities or luck with injuries at wrong times or whatever, I don't know. But hey, interesting week, as we say, Duncan. I thoroughly enjoyed your company yesterday, and thanks to Ampthill for hosting us as well yesterday. But also, Bath away, one of them in it. We'll move on. It's a new year, 2025, so I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Fezcast and all of the team. Thank you for your support in 2024, and we look forward to speaking to you more in 2025 as hopefully Saracens bounce back. And of course, we've got a women's game to look forward to next week as well, haven't we, Duncan?
We have.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it is. Can you?
I think it's Loughborough, isn't it? I think, if I remember rightly, but I haven't got it in front of me. I'm sat at work in my boss's office, using work Wi-Fi and everything.
And my memory's going.
Yeah, absolutely. Poor old boy as he is. So, but anyway, thank you, everybody. Hope you had a good new year, and we'll speak to you next week in our next show in 2025. Cheers, then.
This is the Fezcast.